It was near Christmas in New York City. The weather was becoming colder by the day. The roads were wet and slippery, the sidewalks piling up with snow. Everyone clutched onto their coats and jackets, shivering as they took in the frigid, cold air. It was around 7 p.m. when Scott left his office. Wrapping around his scarf and placing his hands into his pockets, he hurried to head to his car. But a while into walking, he caught sight of a young boy sitting by the curb. The boy was dressed in a pair of faded jeans and a torn shirt, rubbing his arms trying to stay warm. "Beggars," Scott murmured under his breath as he waited to cross the road. But right then, the young boy approached him. "Sir, give me a penny." "Leave me alone," Scott scowled as he searched for his car. In a hurry, he took out his keys and signaled his car. But as he got inside, he turned to look back. He left. Scott Burton was a businessman. After years of hard work, he carved out a successful career for himself. The initial days of first starting his business was difficult, but now he was doing well, owner of a leading telecommunications company in New York City. Scott had no worries for his future. His bank account was loaded. He drove an expensive car. He owned a beautiful suburban house upstate, where his wife Lisa was waiting for him. Despite all the wealth and success, however, Scott never spent any money in charity. His principles went against it. "There's a fundraiser being held to build a new shelter for the homeless. Are you going to help out?" "Help? These people don't need help. They need to learn how to work. I'm not giving my hard-earned money to these people so they can find another excuse to be lazy." Driving an hour upstate, away from the hustle of the city, and into a peaceful neighborhood in Westchester, Scott pulled into his driveway. Grabbing his bag, he hurried to go inside, but the minute he turned to his porch, he was startled to see the same boy he ignored earlier. "Sir, give me a penny." How did you get here?" "Sir, give me a penny." "What?" Scott watched the boy, baffled. "Get off of my property or I'll call the police." But the boy didn't move. Irritated, Scott pushed him aside and went inside. Scott freshened up and sat down to watch TV in the living room, while Lisa brought him his dinner. "Made lasagna for you. Smells wonderful. Let me go get you a drink." As he picked up the bowl and started eating, he suddenly noticed one of the curtains left slightly opened. It was snowing outside. But there on the porch, the boy still stood, staring at him through his window. Where do these beggars come from? Scott got up and knocked on the window. "Go home, kid," he said before he drew the curtains. That night, he had his dinner, spent some time with his wife, and soon went to sleep, having forgotten about the boy. This wasn't the sole incident. There were many like him in New York City, and Scott would often have to deal with them following him. His bigger concern was leaving his wife home alone. Perhaps it was time he invest in a better security system. The next morning, he got ready for work and was to head out, when he froze, seeing the boy. "Sir, give me a penny." This time, Scott neither spoke to him or acknowledged his presence. He locked the door and got into his car. Scott had a busy day at the office. and come evening, he was relieved to be going home. But the moment he pulled into his driveway, his exhaustion turned to rage when he saw the boy waiting on his porch. Exasperated, Scott fumbled through his pockets and took out the copper coin. "Here's your damn penny. Now get out of my sight." Without a word, the boy searched the snow for the penny, picked it up, and left. Scott went inside, watching him through his window. Perhaps he shouldn't have gotten so worked up. Now this boy would probably be after him, begging for money all the time. The next morning, however, Scott left his house in peace. The boy wasn't anywhere around. After work, he didn't see him. And when he returned home, he wasn't there either. That night, as usual, Lisa brought him his dinner and sat next to him. But every time Scott went to take a bite, he got a strange feeling that someone was watching him. "What happened, Scott? What are you looking at out the window?" "Don't ask. This homeless boy was following me." "And what about him?" "I don't know. There was just something strange about him." "You look tired. You should get some rest." Scott and Lisa went to bed and soon fell asleep. But sometime into the night, Scott felt a cold hand touch his shoulder. Thinking it was Lisa, he shifted in bed, but that's when he heard a faint breath near his ear. "Sir, give me a penny." Scott jumped up startled as he ran to turn on the lights, but no one was there. "Scott, what happened?" He was here." "Who?" "That kid. He was here." "What? Scott, there's no one here. It was probably your dream." Lisa tried to calm him down, but despite everything she said, Scott lay in bed, unable to sleep. He kept on wondering about that boy. Who was he? What did he want? Roaming in his thoughts, Scott suddenly remembered his school days. Back then, he and his friends were a group of punks. They gave a hard time to all the others just for the fun of it. But there was a boy in particular they used to pick on. He belonged to a poor family and would wear the same pair of old clothes every day and those pair of worn-out shoes. Scott got out of bed and went to the attic. He dug out the box of his school yearbooks and searched through each and every page. The memories floated in front of his eyes as he remembered all the faces and finally spotted him. It's him? Scott remembered the last time he had seen him. That day, the boy had come to school wearing a new sweater. It was after years that he was able to afford something new. During lunch break, Scott and his friends started poking fun at him. "What are you doing in the cafeteria? Your pockets are empty. Didn't you spend everything on that sweater?" How sad. Now his family won't be able to put dinner on the table tonight. All because of that new sweater. The whole cafeteria roared in laughter as the boy silently sat there bearing the humiliation. But Scott and his friends didn't stop. After school, they pushed the boy around, taking him to the lake. In the middle of the winter, the lake was partly frozen and there was no one else there. "Nice sweater, dude. Let us take a look at it." "Stop it. You don't tell us what to do. We tell you. Give up the sweater." Scott and his friends took the boy's sweater and his backpack and threw it out onto the frozen lake. They laughed at him as he kept slipping on the ice, trying to get his bag. But as he neared it, the ice began to crack, and his bag fell into the water. "Loser! Come on, guys, let's get out of here." They all left him alone on the frozen lake, without his clothes, without his things. The next day, the boy didn't turn up in school. He and his friends assumed his parents had transferred him to a different school, as they couldn't afford to send their son to the same school as them. But after all these years, looking at the boy's picture, Scott realized what he had done. He couldn't sleep the rest of that night. Come morning, he sat at the table but couldn't eat. Anxious, he wore his coat and opened the door to leave. When he saw the boy on his porch again, Scott's heart began to race as he looked into the boy's eyes. Guilty, he fell to his knees and begged him. "It was a long time ago. We were young. We were kids. It wasn't my fault. What do you want from me?" The boy just stood there, staring at him. Shaking, Scott took out all his money from his wallet. "Here, it's all yours. This is all the money I have right now." Without a word, the boy took the money and left. The next few days passed, and Scott didn't see the boy again. Having cleared his conscience, he felt much relieved. "Scott, Jake's wife called today. He's no more." Scott was shocked. Jake was his childhood friend. They used to be together all the time. "How did this happen? Last time I met him, he was doing fine." "I don't know. The funeral's tomorrow. His wife asked us to come." The next day, Scott and Lisa attended Jake's funeral, shaken up by the tragic loss. He passed away so suddenly. Doctors said it was a heart attack. I found him on the floor in his office. He was still holding the pen in his hand. Before his death, he wrote a new will. He gave all his property, his possessions, his wealth, his house, all to charity. He left nothing for his own family. How will I take care of everything, our kids? "Don't worry, Jenna. If you ever need help, let me know." Returning home that night, Scott pondered over everything. He couldn't understand why Jake would suddenly change his will and a sudden heart attack. As far as he knew, Jake never spared a nickel to drop into a homeless man's cup. Thinking about everything, Scott fell asleep that night. A few hours later, he woke up feeling thirsty and went down to the kitchen to have some water. In the darkness, he patted the walls as he walked downstairs. But the minute he reached the kitchen doorway, he stopped. In the dim light, he made out a small, dark figure in the kitchen. "Sir, give me a penny." Lisa woke up hearing a scream from downstairs. Scott wasn't beside her. She immediately ran out, anxious to see Scott unconscious on the floor. "Scott! Scott!" Scott woke up in his room. It was morning. His wife was sitting beside him. "Scott, what happened to you last night?" "I have to go." "Where are you going?" Everything made sense now. Jake had been with him that day at the lake. Had he also been seeing the boy? Was this the reason behind the heart attack? Scott was panicked. He knew he had to do something, or he too would meet the same fate. He went straight to the bank and took out all his savings. In the following weeks, he sold all his things, even Lisa's jewelry, and finally, their house. "Scott, why are you doing this? Have you gone mad?" Lisa was devastated. Scott wouldn't listen to anything. Scott gathered all his money into the bag and traveled to the lake. He walked out on the ice, and in tears, began trying to crack it. He would throw everything away. But just as the ice was to split, he heard a voice. "Sir, give me a penny." Scott fell back as he pushed the bag forward. "Take it. Take all of it. Just leave me alone." Once again, without a word, the boy took the bag and left. Ever since then, life changed for Scott. He was relieved having made amends for his past. But now, he was jobless. He had no family. He had no home. He stared at the few coins in his pocket. He would probably have to sleep hungry tonight. Searching from alley to alley, he scavenged the blanket someone had thrown away. Laying on the wet ground, still shivering, he listened to the cars drive by until it was quiet enough for him to sleep. But as he drifted off, he heard footsteps. Out of the darkness stepped out the boy. "I gave you everything I had. Everything. I have nothing more to give you." Scott shuffled his pockets. "All I have are these few pennies." "Here, let me see what I have in my pocket." A penny. Take this. Go buy your lunch with it. As a matter of fact, go feed your family with it." "Take your money. I don't need it." "No, sir. That's not all." If you enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe to my channel and share this video with your friends and family.